Amazing. Well, hello, Stuart. I'm so excited to be joining you from across the world. You're in Australia, I'm in New York. So there's a bit of a time difference there, but I'm so grateful for you to join. I would love to get started by getting to know you a little bit better and then understanding what your work life looks like, what your company does, and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. So my background's been sort of very focused on small startups that have scaled quite dramatically. I started at Rocked, which monetizes the transactional moment. So after you make a purchase buying pizza, you might be given related deals and offers based on that. They've got a big partnership with Ticketmaster, and they offer sort of parking upsells, hotel upsells where the event is based. I joined them back in 2011, and I was there for 5 years. They just recently did a Series E round of funding. They're at 350 staff, so it was quite exciting to see them become a unicorn. After that, I moved on to Cover Genius, which is an insurtech startup. I helped build up their rental cover brand. And from that, again, I joined when there was sort of 10 to 15 people, and they're at over 300 now. And I was there for 3 years. And after that, I joined a startup called Clipchamp, which is a Brisbane local startup. And they do online video editing. And I helped them build their online presence, focused on sort of organic traffic. And they just recently got acquired by Microsoft. So I then discovered Upflowy, and knowing the potential of sort of that engagement moment when someone's online on a website and sort of capturing their attention and being able to split test various options. I saw it as a huge potential because there's no one really people do landing page split tests, people do split tests with sort of online ads and Facebook ads and things like that. But people aren't really optimizing and split testing once you engage in a button and the steps and processes that follow. So if you click a contact us button, or you're registering to sign up for an app or doing an onboarding process, there's a huge amount of opportunity there for split testing from a storytelling perspective and from what questions you ask. And there's also that ability to personalize based on sort of conditional logic and making sure you're collecting the right message and the right questions from the right person. So it's quite an exciting space. And yeah, we have some really exciting news. Yesterday, we just announced a seed round funding of $4 million. So that got covered on TechCrunch. So we're all pretty blown away by that sort of news when we're still sort of a relatively small startup.
That sounds like a wild journey that you've been on with different kinds of companies and startups, and all of them are getting acquired all over the place and turning into unicorns. So kind of looks like you have a Midas's touch, and like whatever you touch turns into gold kind of situation there. That's very exciting. It's amazing to have this conversation with you just because this podcast is surrounding how small businesses can get there. And maybe you could give some tips and tricks as to how you help companies get there. So what are certain things that you offer to these companies, and what are the most pressing challenges that you usually have to solve with them?
Yeah, and one thing that I found being at all these various companies is a lot of people focus on certain things, but they don't sort of holistically focus on everything. So someone will be focusing on getting more people to the website. So they hire an AdWords contractor or a Facebook marketer or someone like that, and they're getting lots of people to their website. And they might be doing a really good job, but that messaging doesn't carry through on the website, and then they're not testing the various things on their website, and then testing and iterating on the engagement process. And like, what is the goal for the website, but then what is the goal for the sales team, or what's the next step? So like connecting all the dots so that all the goals speak to each other. It's one thing to have someone go on your website, fill out your contact form, and you get their details, but it's a whole nother thing for them to be contacted by a salesperson, the right questions to be asked, them to be put into a sales meeting, and then that sales meeting goes successfully and they sign up to the service or the product or whatever it is. It's often a lot easier with e-commerce because it's sort of a one transactional moment, but when you're talking about businesses that have sort of longer sales processes, or they're trying to really squeeze out customer value and engagement, you really want that sort of onboarding process to be really well refined so that they're experiencing what they're expecting and they know what's coming, and they're getting the right product for them and all of these sort of things. So really honing in and iterating on each step of the funnel and getting that right. And acting as the customer in all the different personas that they could be. If your business caters to a whole wide gamut of people, you really want to be able to understand each of those sections and have a tailored message for each of those people, so you're convincing them in the right way about the benefits for them instead of just the general benefits of your product. So I think
Mhm.
those sort of things are really important to carry through at every stage of the journey. You might capture them on an ad somewhere that really sells the thing that they want. Then they get to the website and that isn't selling it as well. And then they're asking questions about things that are unrelated to them, and that's not getting carried through. So you want to really hone in on every step of the funnel and really optimize it.
Definitely. And I think a very key way that a key step that a lot of companies have difficulty understanding is how to correctly communicate with their users. As you said, it varies for every single company, every single funnel is different. And so, what have you noticed that is overarching in the way that companies should be communicating with users or prospective users? Like, how do people optimize those lead generation processes for different companies? Like, what have you done?
Yeah, and I think the best way of thinking about these sort of things is no matter what you're selling, if you're selling things to huge enterprises, small to medium businesses, even consumers, it's easier for consumers because you're selling to a human, but realistically, you're always selling to a human. Even the person that works at an enterprise, they're a human when they're not at their job. Like, you want to act in a human way. You want to have a natural way of speaking, like even like top level enterprise products. I have no problem if they're talking in a natural language to you. They're acting normally. They're selling to you in a normal way. Like, we're all humans dealing with humans, so like carry that through all your marketing messages, and always test what works as well. Because even if it doesn't work for some segments, but it works for others, then you want to understand that and learn that. And Upflowy's got some really cool features where you can really easily segment people based on not just the data that they've input, but other sort of metadata like their location, what device they're using, things like that. So you can start tailoring the message that you're sending as well as sort of the questions that you're asking based on that sort of information. So if it's a mobile device, you want to ask a lot less questions and get more to the point quickly. If they're on a desktop, you might know that they are happy to do a few more steps in the process, which can be good to know. And you can ask sort of specific questions from specific locations as well and take them on sort of that custom flow based on those sort of things.
What you're saying is very key in that I think a lot of people think it's really straightforward. It's really straightforward to think like if you're trying to sell something to someone, they need to like you. And a lot of people miss that very straightforward point because a lot of the sales conversations and a lot of the business pitch conversations tend to be very formal, tend to be the people try to make it appear very professional. But in the end of the day, if the other person that you're trying to communicate your message to isn't receptive to how you present yourself and how you present your topic, they're not going to want to listen or learn more or buy the product or service. So I think that's very key what you're saying there. And I think that's a great plugin for Decktopus as well, because with Decktopus, what we try to do is optimize the way in which people communicate their messages, cut it down to the simple bullet points and then deliver it in a way that's really going to stick with your audience. And we also offer ways in which you can generate leads in a more optimal way. So we definitely optimize deck and proposal creation in that way, surrounding how you can better deliver your message. And if this is a business offering, then how to deliver that message directly to your audience in a way that will stick and convert. And I think given that you had a lot of experience helping people achieve that, do you think there's a missing gap in which people like have been presenting to you or you've been presenting to people? Like, what are some common grievances that you've experienced in those kind of presentation environments?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that I've always wanted is a way to keep a presentation on time and punctual. So, like, if you've got 20 slides to go through or 10 slides to go through, it's always hard to keep that right cadence going through it when it's an interactive presentation. So something to keep you on point constantly throughout a presentation to show where you're at, I think would be good. Not just for me, for everyone running through presentations, especially when they're less experienced at doing it, to sort of make sure you're covering the right things at the right moment. So you don't get to the end of the time slot and you're like, I've got 5 more slides to get through, and you race through it, and making sure it's structured in a way that you're getting reminded on how you went in that presentation, and maybe you need to restructure your presentation to push things that were more important to the start, so you cover them off, and other things along those lines.
And how do you, apart from giving presentations, how do you currently communicate with your business partners, your fellow coworkers? Is it fully online? Like, what does that look like right now in your business?
Yeah, definitely. We're very much a remote first business, so our whole team's sort of scattered all over the globe. I'm in Brisbane. There's a lot of people in Sydney, Australia. We've got some in Melbourne now. We've got some in Paris. We've got some in India. So yeah, so we're often sort of doing a lot of asynchronous communications to get people across different things. We use Slack. We use other tools like ClickUp. So a lot of things we're very good at documenting and sharing. We've started using a new meeting notes tool or recording tool called TLDV, and that records your meeting. And once that's recorded, it actually timestamps it based on important things. And you can paste those timestamps in Docs and in Notion and in quite a few other tools. So it's really easy to record a tutorial for someone on how to do it, put timestamps in it, have those timestamps link into a doc with further notes so that you can record a process document, but then you can also have a video that someone can watch. So when they get stuck at a process doc at a certain step, they can watch the segment of the video for that step, which is really good because if you record a process and, hey, can you do this? This is how you do it. And here's a 30-minute video. You're going to go, this 15-minute task, I've got to watch a 30-minute video to do it. When I know 80% of what I should be doing, it's just that 20% that you miss. So it's scanning through a video and trying to get it. So there's lots of little tools like that we've sort of found and honed in on trying to make it a bit easier. We love using Loom videos as well. So just recording those quick videos, super easy from a browser plugin to record your screen and capture your voice. And you can screencast, quickly do a task, share that Loom and have it, and they can comment on it and they can share it with other people. So it's very convenient to build out that sort of Wikipedia of knowledge so that everyone's sort of got an asynchronous way of learning new tools. And when new people come into the business, they can be like, oh, here's the documentation on this, just jump in and learn. So.
Yeah, definitely. And we use a lot of those tools as well. I actively use Loom for our future videos. So whenever we roll out a new feature, I go on Loom and then record myself explaining how to use that feature. So I really like that one. And how do you think do you have like hour-long meetings? Like, do you think there are ways in which tools have helped you optimize those meetings even and the way you communicate with your team so that you can be more productive?
Yeah, like I haven't found a tool that's helped me really optimize a meeting as best as I think it could. I think that just comes down to, training and practice and making sure you're on point and trying to re-steer the conversation with everyone. So like you kind of need to be the bully of the meeting where you're like, we should drop this point, talk about it later and get back onto what we're supposed to be doing, even if it's an important thing, but it blows out meetings so you don't get to cover off things that are the point of the meeting and you should sort of park it, talk about it at another point. So I think that's a key thing you need to sort of refocus when you're sort of running meetings, especially. And even if you're not running meetings, you can still voice your opinion on, hey, this meeting's about this, even though I'm not running it. I think we should get back to the point. And it shows that you're always on point and you're trying to sort of re-steer the priorities of things, which is a great thing to be doing.
100%. What has helped me not run longer than what a meeting needs to be is I usually try to set agendas. I try to like allocate certain times to certain like subtopics, and then a quick plug in here again. I usually create presentations and decks ahead of big meetings, and then I put the agenda there, and then I create a slide for each subtopic. And then with Dectopus, you can allocate specific time limits on each slide. So when that time is off, you immediately see it on your screen and you're like, okay, now moving on to this agenda item. So that's definitely created some like optimization on our internal team meetings as well. So that's been really great. And I really recommend you check it out. Do you think there are tools in the current presentation deck creation tools that you use, there are certain issues that you've been running into? And would you be open to trying something new?
Yeah, definitely. Like not knowing that you guys had that feature, it's a remarkable feature that I think is sort of really key to have in all presentation software. Um, and the thing that always gets me stopped by using tools is I love to try them, but it's having the tool go through the entire organization. So it's like Google Slides, I think, is limiting in quite a few areas, and the easy to use templates, it's not there. It doesn't create a slick presentation off the side. You need a design team to slicken up your presentation to make it really refined so you can use it, and it needs to be done a certain way so it's easy for people to use and people don't steer away from the sort of brand identity and those sort of things. But it always comes down to everyone's got Google Slides, everyone can comment on it, everyone's got an account. So having that is always key. So being able to sort of overlay something in an existing app would be sort of the perfect scenario, even if it's a software tool you need to pay for it, but it goes over the top of existing tools. I think that's sort of a really cool way of building into something while having your own tool, but allowing people that like, well, I can't build this in this tool because then if I share it, someone will have a tantrum that it's not in Slides. And I think, as I mentioned, some of the meeting record software that I use, they sort of overlay on the top of the sort of Google Meet, and it integrates into it. So it sort of runs a script that adds the buttons and things to integrate those two things. So there's definitely probably a possibility there. I'm not sure if your product team has looked into that as a sort of a future roadmap item.
100%. We've been looking a lot into different kinds of integrations. We currently can export, you can export your decks as PowerPoints or PDFs at the moment, but it's a fully online tool, so you can access it. All your teammates can access it. We have like different team offerings or enterprise offerings for different plans. And then we also are working on a mobile responsive version right now. So that's going to be a huge win for us, I think. But yeah, definitely, I agree. Like, just I think modern tools, the one thing that they need to keep in mind is just to make it easier for the user, which a lot of tools have difficulty doing because the user interface needs to make it easy and make it work for them, like not the other way around. Like, if I'm learning a new tool, I don't want to be working for the tool. They need to be working for me so that it makes my life easier, you know? So yeah, like, definitely agree with that point. Having said that, I think that's a great wrap up to our conversation. Thank you so much, Stuart, for joining me from all across the world. It was so exciting to connect with you, and hopefully we'll stay connected and stay in touch.
Most certainly, most certainly, and yeah, thanks for the invitation to interview, and I was glad to have a bit of a chat and run through some of these ideas with you.
Thank you.